Welcome. This is Adventures in Voice Acting. What this is kind of a little mini version of these larger workshops that I teach all over the country that are basically designed for people who are interested in getting into voice acting professionally and to give some basics and that sort of thing. What we're going to do, I'm going to give you a little bit of what we do there today and hopefully send you home with a few things that you can do at home that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to go learn in order to get yourself in shape to get started on this. The way it's going to work, I've never actually used a PowerPoint. This is the first time I've ever done this way, so if there's a few glitches, please indulge me. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that you need to learn and need to do, and then at some point towards the end, I'm going to give a few of you a chance to come up here and try it out with a little critique and hopefully the kind applause of everyone in the room. So, thanks. I'm Tony Oliver. Thank you. I don't know why you're clapping. I've been a voice actor for 30 years. I've been a director for the last 10 or 15 years, and have also produced movies. I was the head writer on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and co-producer on that. I've done roles, voice acting roles, starting with Robotech way back in the day, Lupin the Third, Vandred, Sayuki Reload, and recently Bang Shishigami in Blaze Blue. It's really bizarre. Just want to put a shout out to the people who help us out, the people who I'm partnered with and who kind of provide all the materials that we do and sponsor this. It's Bang Zoom Entertainment, and well, it's kind of dark, but I need the lights up so you can see that. Bang Zoom is one of the top anime and gaming recording studios in the country. They're located in Burbank, California. These are the people who I mostly direct for and do a lot of voice work for. They're nice folks. They're very supportive. It's one of the few studios that I've been hooked up with that from day one has been supportive of fans and are really lovers of anime, and that's why it's so fun to work for them, because they're all about a little bit of purity and a lot of quality, so that's what they're all about. So, anyway, what do you need to learn? The job is voice acting, okay? So there's two parts to this job, the voice and the acting, all right? The basis of all of it, though, is acting. That's really what's the basis of it all. People who are voice actors, that do this for a living, we're first and foremost actors. We trained as actors. Most of us did not start out in voice work. I started out as a stage actor in Los Angeles doing musicals. And if you know anything about stage acting in Los Angeles, this is not a good career path. There's not a lot of it. If I lived in New York, that would have been a different story. I did a lot of television and that sort of thing before that. Most all of us are actors first, and then we became voice actors. There's very few people that start out going after voice acting and don't study. I mean, I know one who never took an acting class, only one, and he's one of those rare 1 in a million naturals, and that's Steve Bloom. He's just got a natural way of doing things. So the very first and foremost thing you need to learn is acting. So the question is, what is acting? What's acting all about? What acting's all about really is about conveying emotion. It's about getting a person to hook into your character so that they'll follow you, so they'll care about what your character is doing, so that they'll care about the story. All right? So acting is first and foremost about conveying emotion, not so much about what you sound like. Because a lot of people have come up to me and says, well, I got a really nice voice, and they do. I had one guy in one of my classes who had this beautiful, big, round voice that I would love to have, you know, but he couldn't act. He couldn't really speak a line believably. So and that believability is what hooks you in. So think about it. When you guys are watching your favorite anime, when you're watching your favorite, watching your favorite movie, that sort of thing, what is it that makes you come back every time? What makes you care and sit through 2 hours of a movie or plop down your $11 to go to the theater? Is it $11 out here now? It is in LA. 13. 8. Oh, I'm doing great now. I feel a lot better about that.
Free in Lake Charles.
What?
Free in Lake Charles.
Free in Lake Charles? Oh, that's cool, but I don't know where that is.
West Louisiana.
West Louisiana, all right.
They have casinos.
If I'm ever there. But what makes you come back, what makes you plop your money down, is because you care about the character. You get sucked into this thing. I mean, we can all argue about whether Twilight is good or not.
It's okay.
But the fact of the matter is, yeah, but hang on. The fact of the matter is, the reason people come see it is two things. Either they're in love with one of the actors, or they're hooked into that character for some reason. As silly as that story can seem to some folks, they get hooked in because those actors really get hooked into those characters. So that's the secret, and that's your job as an actor, is to connect emotionally for the audience. So the way you do that is to connect emotionally with the character yourself. What's most important about acting, especially voice acting, is being able to connect in with that character so that you're feeling what that character feels. So when I approach a line of dialogue, for instance, and I'm doing a show, I'm doing an anime of some sort, and that character is feeling embarrassed and upset about some reason, I have to put myself into that emotional state first, and then I read the line. Rather than trying to sound like I'm upset, I actually have to kind of feel upset. Now there's a little bit of a danger to that. A lot of people who get into a lot of these methods say, well, you need to take the character home, you need to live it, you need to be it. That's not really a wise way to go. It's not great for your sanity, but when you but when you're doing a movie or when you're doing voice acting, you only have to maintain that emotional connection for 10 or 15 seconds. So you don't need to take it home with you, but you certainly have to be able to put yourself in that state. And all you have to do is to make it work is to feel. You feel first and act second. Let me give you an example of how that would work. Let me, I need a guy, some guy. Come on up. I hate this chord here. All right. All right, there's a line right there up on the top. Okay? I just want you to read it out loud. Don't try to put a lot of emotion. Face the group. Say hi. What's your name?
Jacob.
Say hi, Jacob.
Jacob. Hi. If I don't stop you right now, every person in this country will end up being your prey.
Okay, cool. Now, I just want you to, without changing anything, I just want you to get this sinking feeling in your gut that this person that you're talking to needs to be dead. Okay? And just a real rage and hatred. Just be thinking about that. Feel it, and don't do anything else, and then read it again.
If I don't stop you right now, every person in this country will end up being your prey.
Do you hear the difference? The only difference that he had is that he was feeling it. Thank you. Thanks. So that's the key. That's the secret. When you're practicing this stuff at home, and this is a job like any other sport, any other profession. You have to practice it at home. When you practice it, that's one of the things that you need to practice. You need to practice tying into that. What does it feel like to be angry? What does it feel like to be happy? What does that feel like? And I'm not just talking about emotionally. I'm talking about physically. When I'm doing a part which requires a lot of tension and hitting, I'm going to put myself in a physical position that matches that character. If my character is holding a sword out, you bet my microphone's here, but my arm is out here holding the sword. Because it's really important you put yourself into that position. When you practice this stuff at home, you need to practice that. Another thing as actors you need to do in order to get to that is you need to be observers. Not only of other people, and people watching as an actor is great. I love going to New York because there's every different kind of person out there that you could possibly find. New Orleans is quickly becoming my second favorite for that. But you also need to observe yourself. Because actually, all you have is yourself when you're in that booth. You have to tap into that emotion yourself, and the only way to know what that feels like is to remember what it was like yourself. So one of the exercises that you're going to get if you take acting classes, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, is what all of these methods that they're going to teach you is all about getting in touch with your own emotional being. Now that gets a little scary too, because sometimes you have to make yourself pretty vulnerable in the studio in order to do that emotionally, and that's tough for some people, but that's part of what you have to do this job. Okay? So you need to learn to realistically convey emotion and characters with your voice, your face, and your body. Face, I say, this is voice acting, all right? But your face is part of how you communicate. So it's very important. If you watch the really good voice actors, as we're ramping up, because we work on a beep system, it goes beep, beep, beep when we talk, so we have a little bit of warning when it's coming. You'll watch them grimace and get their faces all contorted into whatever, and then the line comes out beautifully and perfectly. There's very few people I know that can do it without doing that. So your face is part of that. Which is why I really encourage people to get accustomed to performing, to get in front of folks. All right, this is like learning an instrument or a sport. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And that's a little tough for some people. It's a little tough in terms of getting nervous. I'm essentially, this is weird, I know, people are going to laugh when I say this, but I'm essentially a shy person. Except I like to get up in front of people and be silly. But the difference is, I don't know you guys, so that's kind of okay. You put me in a party with people I don't know, I'm going to be the guy in the corner. All right? So I had to learn, the first time I had to come up in front of a group of people and be myself. I'd been acting for years on stage with a script, but I actually had to do my very first convention. I'm finding myself up talking to a group of people about twice as big, and I have to be me, and that was really tough. So a couple of things that that I decided that I needed to learn was, for instance, how to be comfortable in front of people. And that took a little while. What I did is I ended up creating a persona, a character of me that I could play when I was in front of people, and eventually I didn't have to do that anymore. So right now, what you see is what you get. But hope you don't mind. But a couple of things you can do to do that is get involved with community theater. Get involved in theater in your home, and you don't have to pack up everything off to New York or off to Los Angeles to try to do all this stuff. Get involved with theater at home. Get in front of people. Get used to saying lines in front of people. A couple of things it's going to do for you. It's going to get you comfortable playing characters, because there's nothing cooler than playing a character in front of a group of an audience that's live, because you get immediate feedback. You know when you're doing good and you know when you're not, because you can feel it coming from the audience. The second thing is it's going to get you used to projecting like this. You have to be able to fill a room up with your voice. It's really part of the job. And the microphone doesn't really do much for you in terms of amplifying. If you give it a soft voice, it's going to sound too soft. You need to be able to fill a room up with your voice like this without a microphone and be able to do it all day. And I'll talk a little bit about how you do that in just a second. But it also gets you a little bit bigger than life when you're acting. And in voice acting, that's important. Film is all about the face and the eyes. All these actors these great actors that do these films, they're all about internal emotion. Stage is about being big and broad. And voiceover is a little close to stage than it is to film, and that you have to be a little bit bigger than life because all you have is your voice. The other thing that being able to fill a room does for you is project the emotions. I've worked with people who are just acting their asses off. Pardon the French if anyone's offended by that, but they're acting their butts off, and but I can't hear them. They're so soft that I'm not able to get the emotion. You got to think of your voice as a carrier wave, like in radio. There's a carrier wave, and on top of that, it carries the music that you're doing. It's the same thing. Your voice carries that emotion out into the room and out into everyone. So the louder you are, the louder you can be, the easier it is for the audience to get what it is you're acting and what it is you're feeling. And remember, your job is to connect the character with the audience and you with the character. So that's very, very important. So get involved in local theater, college theater, church theater, whatever's available to you. Especially if you live, like anybody lives up in Kentucky near Louisville, there's actually some great theater in Louisville, Kentucky. There's the Actors Theater of Louisville, and it's wonderful. Take acting classes. You don't have to go take Stella Adler, and all these really expensive classes. Local community college will do. And the reason is you're not going to learn everything you need to learn from a teacher. A teacher can only kind of guide you to find your own talents. Okay? What you do get in the acting classes is two things. A lot of practice, you get some input from third parties, and you start to get to network with people who are of like mind that want to do what you want to do. And I can't tell you how important that is now. I think I didn't have social media when I was getting. I didn't know. I mean, the only people I could connect up with was the few people that I would meet at the studio whenever I would get lucky enough to get a part and go. Now you guys have all this networking that you can do. And that's really important because that's how you find other jobs. There's a whole network of people that, for instance, of students of mine back in Los Angeles who help each other find jobs and help each other by critiquing and giving suggestions and really kind of they come up as a group. And some of these people include Christina V, who I'm sure some of you know now, and several other actors Laura Landa, who plays Miss Lychee in Blaze Blue. All of these people came up that way and they help each other in networking. And by going to college and doing that sort of thing, you're going to find that. Whoops. Take this aspect of your career seriously. I can't tell you how often I've come to gone to a convention and done a workshop like this, and then the hand goes up and says, how do I get into voice acting? And the first thing I say is, you got to go study acting. And I watch the eyes roll in the back of the head, and I go, oh no, I got to go to school. This is really important. You might be able to get one job if you're lucky because of the sound of your voice, but you're not going to be able to maintain a career unless you can act, unless you have some skills at acting, and some skills that continue to evolve. I learn every day. I'm so lucky. I get to direct. I direct a lot. In fact, that's how I mostly make my living. And I get to work with these great voice actors, and every time I work with one, I learn something that I now take into my own performing when I go do voice acting with my own. So it's really important that you take this very seriously. This is a lifelong commitment if you want to do it. You have to continue to grow. You have to continue to learn. because you're going to change as you grow up. I used to play nothing but young, Rick Hunter, oh my God, I'm a young hero, that sort of thing. Well, now Yuri Lowenthal and Johnny Bosch have shown up. I don't get those parts anymore, So now I've had to change, and now I do more villains and lower characters and that sort of thing. So you need to evolve along with it, and studying and doing this is what's going to help you do it. I just made it up. Before I go on to that, there's another thing that we need to talk about, and I'm going to give you a little exercise that y'all can do. Hello? I'm going to give you a little exercise that y'all can do at home. One of the biggest things that's difficult about doing voice acting is that by and large you don't really see the script, especially in anime and games. You don't see the script until you arrive at the studio, stand in front of the mic, and they put it in front of you. So you're reading an awful lot of the time. You're not getting a chance to memorize or get to know this stuff really well. So you need to learn how to read really well, and that's, I know that sounds kind of silly this day and age, but if you remember in junior high, you get somebody getting up in front of the class, and they start to read, and they get the same kind of music over and over again, and okay. Well, that's what people tend to do. That's how we're taught in school how to read out loud. And you need to be able to read as if it's your first thought coming out of your mind. Okay? So a little exercise you can do. You can take it at home. And this was given to me by a guy by the name of Art Hand. And Art Hand was the voice of CBS in the 60s and 70s. This is CBS. And I was taking a workshop. Much like, not like this one I had to pay a lot of money for. And he said, after I read from him, he says, Tony, I love doing his voice, Tony, your acting is very good, and you seem kind of glib, but you sound a bit like you're reading. So what he gave me was this instructions, and I was to take something, and I encourage you to do this. Find something every day, for about 10 or 20 minutes a day, go find something that you've not read before. Magazine or a book. Try to stay away from newspapers, because newspaper grammar is terrible. But you want to get, and you just for 10 or 15 minutes, pick it up, open up to a page, and just start reading out loud. Nice and loud if you can. A couple things are going to happen. First of all, your family's going to think you've completely lost your mind. But you're anime fans, so they probably aren't. The second thing is that you're going to start stumbling around a lot. It's going to stumble, it's going to trip out of your mouth. You're going to be thinking, what the hell is Tony talking about? This is stupid. But keep at it. Keep at it for a while. Because eventually what starts to happen is that the brain starts to get out of the equation. And the words start going into your eyes and out of your mouth. And into your eyes and out of your mouth. And when you stop having to worry about those words, you can focus on the emotion. And now when you put it in, you filter it through the emotion, it comes back out. The acting becomes very natural and very relaxed, and that's where you want to be. You can put, with any of these guys that you've seen this weekend, you put a script in front of them, they'll just read it. They'll just read it like it was the first time. And that's because we've been doing this a long time and you practice. But that's something that you can do at home. And I did it for about a year, and it worked out like gangbusters. Soon after that's when I got Robotech. So, your voice. You need your voice. You learn to use your voice effectively. Okay. And let me give you the short version of this. The voice, essentially, the greatest analogy to voice is a bagpipe. You all know what a bagpipe is, okay? You got a big bag of air, and you squeeze it, and it goes through a reed and creates vibrations that gets transferred to the tubes and comes out as music. Your voice is essentially the same thing. Your lungs are the big bag of air. You have a diaphragm at the bottom, a muscle down here, which pushes up and down and pushes up and squeezes the air out. It goes across your vocal folds, your vocal cords. They're actually little muscles, and they vibrate. Those vibrations get transferred to the bones of your face. The voice rattles around inside, long trip, isn't it? The voice rattles around inside your sinuses, and that's what your sinuses are for, by the way. They're to amplify. And then it comes out of your whole head. Your voice actually comes out of your entire face. The mouth is there basically to give the words some form and some clarity. But essentially, if you ever go to a large touring show or go to Broadway or anything like that, you'll notice they wear mics right here on the top of their head or over here on their temple. Those are called bone mics. And they actually pick up the vibrations that are going on in your sinuses. So the basis of all of that, the thing that makes it all work is the breathing. All right? Now the way we were taught when we were young, how to breathe, is they say, okay, suck in as much air as you can and you pull your thing and you puff out your chest. All right? Wrong. That's exactly the wrong way to do it. All right? The top of your chest has the least amount of air capacity. Most of your lung capacity is down towards the bottom and the back. Okay? So what you want to do is pretend that you're drawing air down into your abdomen, down into your stomach. All right? And if you watch, I have a nice belly so you can see it. If you watch, when you breathe correctly, the shoulders are still, and the hand goes out. And all your power is there. And the more power you have on your diaphragm, which is down here right below your solar plexus, right below where your ribs are, that's where all your power comes from. That's where you should be pushing, not up here. So when you breathe, if your shoulders are going up and down and your chest is going up and down, you're not breathing effectively. And the only way that you can fill a room, like I'm doing right now with my voice without a microphone, is if you're breathing effectively. It's all based on the voice, on the air that you're doing. The more you can project, the more hireable you are. Bottom line, if you're too quiet, some people will like it, but the engineers will hate it, and eventually you'll stop working, because the engineering guys are the ones that have to make you sound good, and if they can't get enough signal, they can't do it for you. So you have to project really well, and you do that by breathing. I got a little exercise that you can do. Let me find somebody who's... Yes? All right, if you can... I can't do this on the table, but I want you to lay down here in kind of a sit-up position. Like that, just like that, with your knees bent and on your back. Make sure your back is flat against the floor. I don't know if you can all see this, but she's sitting with her knees up and her back against the floor. Now go ahead and just take a big deep breath with your diaphragm. There you go. Now you see how her stomach's going up and down? Okay. When you're in this position, it is almost impossible to breathe in correctly. So this is a great place to get the muscle memory that you got to do it, okay? And then if you really want to work it out, pretend this is a book. You put a book down there on top of it, and it's kind of like doing calisthenics for your diaphragm. All right? Now that little exercise I told you about, oh, I'm sorry, I'm leaving you on the ground there. Thank you very much. Very nice. I get to talk and I forget. That little exercise I gave you about reading, do it in that position. First of all, you can kill two birds with one stone. So instead of spending 20 minutes working on it, you can do it. Also, it allows you to start hearing your voice getting louder and louder. The better you breathe, the clearer your voice is going to get, and the louder you're going to be, and the more confidence, by the way, this gives you. So even if you don't want to do this for a living, this is not a bad thing to do for your life in general, because all of us at one time or another have to get up in front of a group of people and present. And by speaking clearly and loudly, you're going to be able to wow them, and you're going to get a lot more confidence in yourself. So you need to breathe well, you need to read well, you need to place your voice well. I'm not going to get too much into that, but there's different ways that you can place your voice. Most of us try to place it in the throat. Your throat should be relaxed when you're talking. It should all be kind of coming out of your head. Remember, this is the speaker up here. So if you I like to imagine that I have a little speaker right here on the top of my head, and that's where I push. Let me give you an example. If I'm talking, that's hard for me to do it. If I'm talking to where I'm kind of down in my throat, I'm down in my throat, it really gets a little harder to hear me. But when I push it right up here into my head, suddenly it gets clearer. I'm not using any more volume or air. It's just where it's placed. Okay? Also, placement is how you get character. I'll give people like this, so I'll give you this little example. You can place your voice high and low, and it's a mental thing. It's not physiological. Most of us speak kind of in the middle of our nose. That's where the voice kind of feels like it's placed. So if that's when I'm speaking this way, that's where I'm talking. If I want to play younger, I'm going to pull it way up into the top of my head, and suddenly it's getting a little higher. Now I'm not moving my pitch up. And then all I have to do is, give a little bit of character, and now I got a younger kid. He's kind of a stupid younger kid. But he's a younger kid. If I'm going to play something a little bit more deep or older, I'm going to take that, I'm going to drop it down in my chest. So suddenly it's sounding loud. I'm still speaking in the same pitch, and then all I have to do is give it a little texture or something, and now I'm a bad guy. Sometimes you have to play characters that are very loud and that take a lot of air. For instance, I play a character named Obscurio in an original cartoon called Gormiti, which isn't out yet. Hopefully it'll be out next year on Cartoon Network. But he talks way deep like this. So that takes a lot of air to do that. Some of this dialogue is really long. So you really have to work out that breathing so that you're really getting a lot of breath control. Okay? Because that's what's going to carry your emotion. I already talked about that. Oh, another thing, by placing your voice outside of your throat, it's going to give you some endurance. Now, those of you who like to play around and cosplay or do something like that do characters and stuff like that, you can notice after a while, even when you're at a convention, you start to get hoarse and it starts to get a little irritated. Well, that's because you're speaking in your throat. Okay? If you place it up here, away from your throat, or down here, away from your chest, down in your chest, away from your throat, you're going to find yourself getting a lot more endurance. Those rock singers that go, ah, I can't do it, but that scream at the top of their lungs and then seem to be able to talk forever. That's what they're doing. They're not really screaming in their throat. They're putting it way up here in their head. Now, it eventually hurts them, and those guys have a very short shelf life in terms of voices. But that's how they get away with this. You want to stay out of your throat, be talking up here in your head. People will hear you better, and you'll last a lot longer. Learn to enunciate. This is a big one. When you and I talk one-on-one, we slur our words. We tend to kind of, drop certain words, drop pieces of letters, that sort of thing, and that's all great in day-to-day conversation. Sorry. I had a sandwich for lunch. Dennis had to. But when you're on the microphone, any little drop of enunciation that you do is magnified 10 times. So it's really important that you're able to pronounce words clearly. And I'm not just meaning pronounce it in the way in which you pronounce it, but pronounce it in standard English. All right? Standard English these days tends to be what I'm speaking. I'm a little California in my standard English. I mean, there's regionalizations, but by and large, where you're really speaking clearly and openly. There's a great exercise that you can do. Another one that you can do when you're in that breathing position is to take that thing that you're reading and spend a few minutes reading each and every word clearly so that you pronounce every letter in the word as well. All right? Now, that's not something you use when you're actually acting because people would think you're nuts. But it helps get your mouth in training. You need to speak with a round mouth. I know that sounds kind of speak with a round mouth, like we're doing My Fair Lady. But most of us speak with a very flat horizontal mouth. You need to speak with a very round mouth. And what that does for you, it allows you to pronounce words clearer. It allows you to talk faster. And a lot of these things that you do, you have to talk a mile a minute on some of these animes. You just got to get a ton of stuff done in a very short period of time. But also sets you up to either get rid of any regional accents that you might have. And in the South, there's all sorts of different, every state's got their own regional accent. Every single state's different. Or add one if you want, okay? And it all has to do with how you shape your mouth and I'll give you an example of that. And you also where you place the words. So British accent, and British is spoken with a rather round mouth in the forward part of the mouth. Everything's forward. That won't do at all. It's very forward, okay? American English is spoken really in the middle of the mouth with kind of a flat mouth. Australian is spoken way in the back with a very open, wide mouth. So how you shape your words will change how you can do an accent. By the way, accents, in terms of foreign accents, generally they're not needed anymore. We're globalized enough that in Los Angeles, if I need a British actor, I'm going to hire a British actor so they sound okay. But you do need to get national, domestic accents down. Everyone needs some sort of a Southern accent. Everyone needs one. It doesn't matter what, whether it's an accent from Louisiana or Tennessee or Georgia or anything like that. I mean, they're all different, but you need some sort of a Southern accent. Most people in Hollywood, what they hear as a Southern accent is actually a West Texas accent, okay? But it doesn't. But any of those is clear. I apologize for my brethren in Hollywood. Everyone needs some sort of a Northeastern accent. New York, Boston, Baltimore is a little bit too much of a crossover. There's not a lot of call for that, but you need something like that, and that pops up. Those are the only two accents that pop up consistently in anime. Generally, you're doing a Southern accent if you're doing a character that comes from Osaka. And usually they'll let us do the New York accent if it's like a cabbie or somebody, kind of a working class guy in the middle of an urban city. Otherwise, it's standard American English is what they're looking for, okay? But learn to enunciate. I've already talked about the importance of projecting your voice. Like I said, I haven't used this PowerPoint before with this, and I keep hitting it, it keeps not doing things. Come on, there you go. You need to get training. Must get training, all right? It's enough to practice for a little bit, but you need to get some sort of a group, a third party helping you out. So voice and singing lessons are important. If you sing, that's even better, because it's the same. By the way, those of you who sing, the placement that I'm talking about and the breathing I'm talking about is exactly the same as what you have to do to sing. Especially those of you who are sopranos and have to hit really high notes. You really have to place it high and use you're saying yes, so obviously you do that. So this is good. Now, if you're not a singer, that's okay. At most community colleges or any college that has a theater program or an extension program that does it, they'll almost always have a vocal production class for actors to teach them how to produce their voice on stage. It's the same thing, okay? So go ahead and take that. Vocal production for theater. A speech class. If you don't have time for that and you're in college, take a speech class. Puts you in front of people speaking, where you have to practice it, and you do get graded on how well you can present and how well you can project your arguments out. Also, in speech classes, often you're starting to use microphones there, and that's not a bad thing to learn how to use a microphone either. Local choirs. If you sing, go get in a choir. Get in a choir. It's going to help. Interesting. It's going to help your voice acting tremendously. Just because you're singing every day, really. You're singing 2-3 times a week or what have you. You take voice acting workshops. Now this sounds self-serving because I teach them and we charge for them and all that stuff, and I'll tell you about those later when the commercial comes. But there's voice acting workshops that travel around the country, and there's some very good ones. Crispin Freeman does one that's excellent. He includes a lot of mythology and anime involved in that as well, which is, for the anime fans, is really good. Bob Bergen, who travels around doing these things, one of the best character voice actors in the business. He teaches classes all over the country. You look those up, and we have ours, Adventures in Voice Acting. There's a couple of them out there, but take them from different people. One teacher is not going to do it for you. All right? What I tell you today, or if you took my workshop and I told you, that may work for this person and not that. So you want to get a variety of opinions going so that you can find what works for you. There's no one method. Each one of us is an individual. Our bodies are different. Physiology has a lot to do with how you sound. And so if you take from different people, you're going to learn different techniques and stuff, and eventually you're going to find stuff that really works well for you. All right, so please, I encourage you to do that. Keep hitting it. There we go. You got to learn to be fearless. All right, fearlessness is important. Fear, the old Dune thing. Fear is the mind killer, but it is. It is. And, most of the time you're spending as a voice actor, you're looking for work. As any kind of a voice actor, you're looking for work most of the time. You're going to audition after audition after audition. And you're going to find yourself in positions where people are judging you, where people are taking your picture while you're talking, and that's okay. I was just using it as an example. Okay. So it's important that you learn how to get by your own shyness. Okay? To present yourself in the best possible light. The best way to do that is to get up in front of people and feel nervous and go through everything you got to do. I fortunately learned it very young. I was in junior high school. I was in my theater department. I was doing my second play ever, and we were doing a children's show called The Pale Pink Dragon. And I had to play the king of the Pink Kingdom. Wow. I had to wear a pink toga and pink tights in junior high. And after the laughter subsided, I discovered it wasn't so bad. You know what? It wasn't so bad, and I could live with that because I could turn it into something else. So a lot of it has to do with getting up in front of folks and just kind of facing that fear. And ask yourself this question: what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of when you get up in front of people? That someone's going to laugh at you? Most people are pretty polite. They're not going to do that. That you're going to make a fool of yourself? Well, maybe you will, but that's not so bad sometimes. Sometimes you get to do that to learn. You know, in Hollywood when you're auditioning, or New York, or even here when you're doing stuff, they're not judging you. The people who are auditioning you are not judging you as a person. They're judging whether or not you fit the character they're trying to cast right at the moment. So it's not a personal thing. So there's really not much to be afraid of. The thing that stops you is the fear. So you need to learn to be fearless. And the best way to do that, I'm going to keep pounding this in the dirt, is to get involved in theater. Get in front of audiences. Get used to it. Okay? And over time, you know, I don't get nervous anymore. I mean, actually, I just finished doing my first musical in 25 years, my first professional stage work. I just closed last weekend. They wanted to extend, but I had to be here. And it was nice to discover that I still don't get nervous before I walk on stage. You know, there's excitement, there's adrenaline, but it's not nervousness. It's different. It's not fear. So you need to get to that point in your life.
What musical?
I did The Fantastics.
Oh!
I played one of the dads.
Who are you?
I played Bellamy, and one of the dads, and we actually were nominated for Best of Hollywood Fringe Festival and Best Musical. So yeah, it went really well. So thanks. What was cool about that is my daughter was the musical director. So I got to work with her for the first time, so that was kind of cool. So, yeah. breaking into the business. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get to have some fun. It's a tough business to break into, all right? I need to let you know that. There's a lot of ads out on the internet saying, make $1 million with your voice. I know one guy, I don't even know him. I mean, he just passed away. Don LaFontaine's the only guy I know of that's made $1 million with his voice. Pardon?
The announce guy for the trailers?
In a word.
There's one man.
Yeah, that guy.
When Hurricane Gustav came down here and made the Pacific, September 5th?
Yeah, I don't know when it was, but he's the only one that I know that made $1 million with his voice. That's because everyone wanted him to go in the world for their thing, you know. It's a tough business. Your odds are against you in terms of the big work, in terms of Hollywood and New York. The bigger the work, the harder it is to get because it pays better and you got more competition. But it's not impossible. I did it. Everybody that I work with did it, and it's a matter of dedication, and it's a matter of really kind of putting yourself forward and going through the things you have to go through. You have to go through some stuff in order to get there. But the way you start is by looking for opportunities at home, in your own community, to do voice work. All right? Every community has a radio station nearby. Okay, now I'm not talking about the major cities. The major cities like New Orleans and I'm trying to think of like Dallas and the other ones that are in this Atlanta, in this general area, they're generally tied up in union contracts and things like that make it difficult for people to break in. But in the smaller towns outside of the major cities, they all have radio stations, some of them have television stations, and all of these places are always looking for people who will work cheap, okay, because they don't make that much money. And so they're open to new talent to come in and try stuff out. So you want to go seek out those places and see if you can't get them to audition you or try you out for something, all right? In college, most colleges have a radio station. Look for work there because they need people to do promotions. They need to do promos and commercials and things like that. Because commercial acting is voice acting too. And by the way, most people who work in the voice acting field work in commercials, not in entertainment style stuff. Most of the work is in the commercial side. Most of the well-paying work is in the commercial side. So get yourself hooked up with online voice acting communities. It's getting back to that networking. There's voiceclub.com and the Voice Actors Alliance are two that I know of. I'm sure someone will pop up with another one here. These are great little organizations of people that are trying to kind of advance the art of voice acting themselves. They do little productions where you record stuff at home and send it in, they cut it in, and they also share news about different jobs and different opportunities around. It's quite a nice little thing. Some of the people, just like any online community, some people get a little, overdone with it. But by and large, they're good folks, and it's a good way to kind of move yourself forward. Talked about local radio stations. Local ad agencies. Every town's got an ad agency or 2 or 3 or 12, okay? Look for them. They're looking for, not only do they look for models and people to be in their photo ads, but they're also looking for people to do commercials. Because in a small town, generally it's 5 guys doing all the commercials, the 5 disc jockeys in town. Those are the ones that are doing everything. So look for opportunity. When I was working in Bakersfield in radio, we were always looking for someone to jump in that could sound good, that could be not the same 4 voices we've already used in all our commercials. So that's a nice place to go. This one I like. There's every community or every region of the country, they have places that do volunteer reading. In other words, you read to kids, either live, you read on tape for books for the blind. Books for the blind. I wouldn't say books for the deaf. I had to double check that. And it's a nice way to get some practice, and you're doing something nice for people that really need help. So that's another great way to go and to get some practice. Eventually, if you're going to do this for a living, you have to go to where the work is. You have to start moving. As you develop things, you're going to need to get yourself further along. You're eventually going to need to put together some sort of a demo or a reel, and we'll talk about that in a little bit if you want. And start moving towards auditioning. And auditioning is an interesting thing because auditioning, I hate these. I'm putting together a webinar series, and I did a test one about a couple months ago, and it was all about auditioning, and I was researching what people say about it. And interesting, a lot of the seminars are surviving auditions or getting through the audition process. Well, that doesn't sound fun at all. It's part of the job. It is your job. Part of your job as an actor is to go out and seek work. Essentially, as an actor, you are a small business person. And you have to go out and get customers. It's all sales, the same thing. Well, that's what the auditioning process is for. And the really good actors actually look forward to the auditions. It gives them a chance to kind of stretch and try things out. But you have to approach it with a really good position. I mean, with a mental attitude that works. You can't go in there dreading it. Oh God, I hope I get through this audition. You just might as well go home because it's not going to work for you. So you want to be prepared when you go. Be prepared as you can be. And what that means is make sure your voice is warmed up before you go. Make sure your body is warmed up before you go. Stretch, especially your back and your neck and anything where you hold your tension. Make sure that's stretched out. If you know what you're auditioning for, go research it. Find out anything you can about it. If it's anime, it's pretty easy. You go to the Japanese websites, you're going to find something on Anime News Network or something somewhere about that. If it's games, it's a little more difficult because gaming the non-disclosure agreements I have to sign for games are like this thick. I mean, they really kind of keep everything very quiet and close, but you can usually find out a little something about it. Or at least find out about what kind of characters you're reading for so you can go practice that. So you have a couple of characters in your pocket before you go. Show up with a positive attitude. Not dreading, and I don't mean like over-positive or over-friendly, but a positive attitude towards yourself. The attitude needs to be, oh, this is going to be fun. You know? It's a chance for you to get up in front of a mic and create some characters and have a little fun for 20 minutes in front of someone who might give you a job doing it. I mean, really, if you show up with a positive attitude, it goes a long way. Another thing is, and I'll give you the big secret to show business. The big secret, you're all ready? All right? None of us really know what we're doing. Some of us are just better guessers than others, okay? So a lot of producers are in there, they're afeared for their job as well, okay? If they make a bad decision, they're afraid they're going to lose their job or look bad. So they're just as scared as you are when you walk in the door. And if they smell fear on you, forget it. They're going to go, I can't, because they need you to save them, okay? And that's really how they're looking at it. So if you walk in with a confident, positive attitude, you're going to relax the producers and the directors. They're going to feel a lot better about listening to you, and they'll pay attention to what you're going to do. Be professional. Show up early. And I mean early, half hour early, okay? Which will give you a chance to go through the copy, because there'll be ad copy or whatever it is you're going to be reading for. They'll have that there for you if they haven't already sent it to you, and they usually don't. So get to it early enough that you can spend a little time with it so that you can really be clean and prepared with it before you walk into the booth. Go in, be cordial, shake hands. It's a business transaction you're doing here, guys. So, you know, be cordial, be professional. When you're done, thank everyone in the room, shake hands, and leave. Don't hang out. Don't ask for backup, not backup, but for feedback, okay? They don't have time, they don't care. The minute you ask for feedback, they go, oh, amateur, and they don't call you back, all right? The bottom line is, when you leave the audition, you forget it ever happened. If you get a call, that's great. If you don't, that's it, okay? The only time you're going to hear from them is if they're going to offer you the job, all right? So when I go to an audition, I go do it, I have a little fun, I say goodbye, I leave, and I forget it ever happened. And sometimes it's a couple months later, I get a phone call, oh, we're ready for you. And I go, what? I don't even remember what it was we were talking about. But that's how you keep them. But since you don't get most of your auditions, that's the way you keep them going nuts. I do about 15 to 20% of the stuff I audition for, I get. I do pretty good. Some of the people I know get about a third. That's about as good as you're going to get. Okay, so you can't go home thinking, oh my God, I suck. Be flexible. When you go in with some ideas, you're going to walk in with some ideas of what you want to do, but the director's going to go, really? Okay, but I want you to do it this way. So you need to be flexible enough to kind of move about and be able to change what you want to do right there on the spot without getting flustered. You can practice that with the way we're practicing your reading at home and that sort of thing. Don't hold back. One of the things that I've noticed, I've watched people do this time and again, where they've got the talent and they're ready to go, and the minute they kind of start to go for it, and they just kind of pull back just a little bit, just that little bit. It doesn't work. You got to leave it out on the table. You got to give them everything. Let them say, no. Let's pull that back a little bit. Not so big, not so broad. You really want to just go for it and be big and loud and see what happens. There's a lot of people that will argue that. But I will point out that one of the most successful voice actors around this part of the country is Vic Mignogna. And that's how he auditions. He doesn't leave anything behind. He leaves it all there on the table, and then you know whether or not you want him, and you pick him because of that, because you know he's going to give everything he's got to the thing. So it's just a great, you can't hold anything back. And finally, have fun. This is supposed to be fun. I didn't go into this job because I wanted to have something serious to do, okay? All right? This is a fun, there's so much heartache involved in being an actor full time. You need to have fun when you get the chance. And if you go into that booth having fun, people are going to pay attention. And they're going to give you a chance, even if they're not sure, because, hey, this person seems to be okay, they're having fun, they're not scared, let's give them a try. And you get your 2 or 3 lines, and you go in and do them well, and they like you. So in a year, they call you back again. And next time it's 6 months later, and next time it's 2 months later, and your roles are getting bigger and bigger, and that's how a career is built. Okay? I don't know what's next. I forgot what's next. I gotta get to that in a few minutes. Any questions? We can take some questions right now. Before we get, yes.
I have an interesting one. I started in theater before I did voice. Did you ever come upon a vocal instructor that told you, "Oh, great, I got to teach you how to talk all over again"? Because you do theater first.
No, and I would venture to say, I don't know what the circumstance is, but I would disagree with that person. Because the type of speaking that you need to do in order to be on stage is the same speaking you need to do in order to work on microphone.
He would say because we overproject.
Yes.
Because
Well,
we use are floor mics or
Yeah.
choir, ceiling mics, whatever.
Good. I would, if every one of my actors came in the booth and overprojected, I would be a happy man.
I'm not overprojecting.
Okay.
I'm not overprojecting.
Because most of the time what the engineers are saying, no, more projection, more projection, more projection. The microphones now, and the digital mics and preamps are so sensitive that they need for you to give everything so that they can then hone it down to what it needs to be. So that's really important. Yes?
Quick question. You did, you sort of referenced it in passing when you were talking about actors in movies, and the focusing on the face. I've taken an acting for movies workshop, and the teacher was emphasizing, keeping your body still, because they wanted to focus on maybe upper body or
Yes.
your body, and they couldn't have you moving around everywhere. But I'm getting a different message from you about voice acting and acting in theater.
Yeah. It's much bigger. I've directed movies, so I know what you're talking about. Film is the camera's this far away from you. What they're focusing on is here. Everything, all of acting in film is in the eyes. It's all going on inside of you. And microphone and on a stage it's big, and you need to be big and broad and a little bigger than life. Now I don't talk like this in my day-to-day life. I'm talking to a big group of people, so I'm being a little bit bigger than life. Same thing on mic. You have a lot of leeway in movement. I mean, your mouth has to stay in front of the microphone, but by and large, you need to be broader and bigger. It's just a different style of acting. The stuff you do internally is the same, but it's how you express it is different. Okay? Yes.
All right. I know that having a demo or a tape that you can give someone is good to have for an audition, but I know someone who also has an agent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, although that might be helpful, is voice acting something you can go into without having to have an agent?
Yeah, actually, yes. You're not going to be able to get an agent in voiceovers until you've done quite a bit of work. Voiceover agents are tough to get, especially in the major cities, because there's not that many of them. A demo is necessary. A demo, by the way, is a couple of minutes of your voice. Actually, I probably could play mine, I suppose. It's your calling card. It's your business card, and it's what helps you get an agent. All of this kind of work that I was talking about, getting involved in local community commercials, that sort of thing, you don't get an agent for that. The only time you actually need an agent is when you start moving into the major cities and start trying to get some of the larger work. I actually don't have an agent. I get my own work. I seem to be able to do that. Although, because I don't have an agent, there's a certain level of titles that I don't really get a chance to audition for. And if I really wanted to, I would have to go out and get myself an agent to do that. I direct more than I act, so I really focus on that. But you don't get an agent right away. And by the way, in terms of demos, until you've got like 10 characters in your pocket that don't sound the same, that you can get recorded well, don't spend the money. It's not going to do you any good, and you want to make sure that you have a demo that's professionally recorded, that sounds clean and professionally done, because it is your business card, and if it sounds amateurish, they're going to paint you as amateur and not going to pay attention to you. So you want to wait a while until you get a demo, unless you're there. I don't know you, but unless you're already there, then you don't want to do it. Just saying, yes.
At the beginning of the panel,
you talked about feeling the emotions that you're talking about in the lines.
Yes.
What do you do if you have a character that literally has no emotions?
Ah, I'm glad you do that. That's a good one. That's a very good one. Every character has emotion. They all have emotion. All right. I play Ulquiorra in Bleach. All right.
Fun guy.
Ulquiorra is very flat. In fact, the direction that Wendy Lee kept giving me is less emotion, less, pull back, pull back, pull back, and he's very, very even and very calm. But underneath that, there's a tension. So what you do is you develop that feeling, that tension, and then squash it, so that you can get that feeling of tension. I actually have to like tense my belly up in order to do that. But every character has emotion. It's just how much are they letting through. And so what we'll want to hear is you holding that back, and that's how you do it. Okay? Yes.
How often are you called to do famous character impersonations like Mickey Mouse or anything like that?
Funny you should ask. I was actually, I actually had the honor of auditioning for Mickey Mouse earlier this year. So that was. I knew I wasn't going to get it, but it was so cool to be asked. It's very rare, if ever, and there are specialists in that. There are a few people that specialize in that sort of thing. So if I need Sean Connery, I'm calling Lex Lang, because that's what he does. He's a specialist in that sort of thing. So there are people that do that. It's not a bad skill to have, mostly because mimicry is a great way to learn acting. By mimicking other people, I've learned a lot from directing Steve Bloom. Some of the characters that I'm playing now are kind of mimics of some of his characters. So you can learn a lot by mimicking people, and doing impersonations is a way to learn to mimic. But it's very rarely called upon.
So, follow-up, would you include invitations on your demo if you're really good at them and they're really solid, but if you're not really geared towards like an environment where that's very suitable?
I might throw one or two in, but I wouldn't center your demo around it. I would center it around original characters.
Okay.
Okay, because that's what people need. They at least where I live, if they want, like I directed and produced a film, and the distributors wanted Rodney Dangerfield's sound in it, so we hired Rodney Dangerfield. It was a terrible session. Oh God. Yes.
You talked about regional accents and so forth. How about age? So say someone in college out here is 20-something, they're called upon to do a 70 or 80-year-old character. Where does that come in your head?
Well, fortunately, out of all of the areas of show business that exist, there's the least amount of ageism in voice work. There's the least amount. I play everything from, well, I don't play the young teens anymore. My voice has just gotten too gravelly for that as I've gotten older. But it doesn't really matter. You can sound the character. You can do it. Did anybody see the Eureka 7 film?